We can begin. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tal Henrik, a spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister's office. This is day 74 of the October 7th war. We start today with the latest updated figures. Hamas's army of terror continues to launch rockets from civilian centers in Gaza towards civilian centers in Israel. That is their double war crime. To date, they have fired over 12,500 rockets, more than 2,000 of which have misfired, most of which landed in the Gaza Strip. Just under an hour ago, my colleagues and I were forced to run to a bomb shelter here in Tel Aviv during a massive attempted missile strike on the greater Tel Aviv area. The IDF has notified the families of the deaths of 4 more Israeli soldiers, thus bringing our military casualty count to 463. We send our heartfelt condolences to the families, the friends, the communities of those brave soldiers. Our hostage count has not changed since yesterday and remains 129. We continue to pursue all avenues to secure their release. Hamas recently engaged in psychological warfare by releasing a video of these elderly hostages. They are clearly malnourished and mistreated by their captors. We demand the Red Cross apply pressure on Hamas and its supporters to secure access to the hostages and start doing their job. We are also grateful to the media outlets which did not air this psychological warfare video. We continue learning of the long-term trauma suffered by children who were abducted by Hamas and about the outright child abuse they suffered. The children's psychiatrists are horrified by their findings, reporting that these crimes against children prompt them to, quote, rewrite the textbook. Our children were stolen from their homes and used as human shields. We have a moral imperative to destroy Hamas and to promise our children that the terrorists will never, ever threaten them again. We move on to an operational update. The IDF continues to confront terror groups on multiple fronts, from Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. In Gaza, IDF troops identified and removed an explosive device planted in a medical clinic in Shajaiya, near a school. They also destroyed yet another terror tunnel near the coastline. Our troops saw terrorists fleeing from the destroyed tunnel and subsequently ordered an airstrike to eliminate them. The IDF and the Shin Bet have completed yet another targeted strike, this one eliminating Subhi Firwana, who was involved in transferring tens of millions of dollars to Hamas's military operations. In the north, the IDF continues to exchange fire with Hezbollah and Hamas terror cells. Just yesterday, Israel received an encouraging visit from U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. He reiterated that the United States' support for Israel is, quote, unshakable, and that the U.S. is not imposing a timeline on our vital military campaign. This war will end with the end of Hamas. We are glad to see the U.S. spearhead Operation Prosperity Guardian, a multinational coalition which will secure the free flow of commerce through the Bab el-Mandeb Passage. The Houthi terror pirates are an urgent threat to international peace, security, and global trade, and that demands a global response. We welcome the decision by 10 nations to take serious steps to confront the Houthis, and we are grateful to the United States for leading this operation. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has begun discussing the next stage of our operations in Gaza. Upon achieving our military objectives, we will be in a position to gradually allow local civilian populations to return home. This is more likely to occur first in Gaza's north before it occurs in Gaza's south, though these plans are, of course, contingent on the success of our military campaign. And finally, we turn our attention to the UN Security Council and its impending vote regarding our war against Hamas. In Israel, we will continue to abide by the highest standards of international laws of armed conflict. We call on the UN Security Council to similarly act with moral clarity and to demand the immediate and unconditional surrender of Hamas rather than intervening to secure impunity for the October 7th monsters. And let me be clear, all of us want this war to end, but none of us can allow it to end while Hamas is in power. They are an existential genocidal threat to the people of Israel, and they explicitly threaten to carry out more and more massacres like the one on October 7th. The sooner we eliminate Hamas, the sooner we revitalize hope for Israelis and Palestinians alike. I will now take your questions.
The first question comes from David Isaac of JNS. On the 10-nation international force to counter the Houthis in the Red Sea, why doesn't it include Israel?
Thank you for this question. Well, as we said, this is a global problem. The Houthis are a global problem, and it requires a global response. Of course, we are acting against this threat as it reaches our borders, and we will do whatever it takes to be involved in that task force. It's important to mention here that the Houthis are an Iranian proxy. Pressure should also be applied on Iran, of course, in that aspect. So it's an Iranian proxy, but it's not enough to exert pressure just on the proxy. The pressure should also, again, I'm repeating, be applied massively on Iran. We know who funds the Houthis. It's the same terrorist regime that funds Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah in Lebanon.
The next question comes from Gwen Ackerman. Is there a time frame for allowing those in the South to return home, and will housing be made available? What kind of housing?
Well, this is a premature question to discuss right now. As I just said in the briefing, all of these day after plans and so forth are contingent upon the success of our ground operation to eliminate the Hamas terrorist regime. As Yoav Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, said, things have to happen in order. Once we move on and continue to operate against Hamas, we want to see this phase coming in which we will distinguish between different parts in the Gaza Strip, and populations will be able to return, likely first to the northern parts of the Gaza Strip earlier than in the south. But again, we have to see how things progress. The IDF on the ground, our forces, as you know, are making significant achievements against these terrorists. We continue to eliminate many terrorists and a lot of the Hamas terror infrastructure, but this takes time. There's still a lot of terror infrastructure that we have to eliminate.
The next question is from Jim Williams of Zenger International News. Tal, over the past 3 days, the U.S. has warned Iran that continuing attacks on ships in the Red Sea or rockets fired on Israel by their proxies in the region would be met with a swift and decisive action against Iran. Does the Israeli government support the U.S. warning against Iran?
Well, of course, we welcome every swift response to terrorism, and Iran is definitely behind all most of the trouble in the region. Arming these proxies, providing the financial resources to these proxies, as we know. So it is very important that not only Israel takes this very decisive action and decisive standpoint against it, it's very important that the United States does so, and other partners around the world. And we are very grateful for President Biden and his global moral leadership in that aspect. It sends the right message. You know, terrorists around the world are watching what's happening between Israel and Hamas, and they're taking notes. For this exact reason, it is also very important that we end this war with the end of Hamas, because that would send the right message to every other Iranian proxy and terrorist troublemaker around the globe.
Next question is from Alistar Bunkal from Sky News. The IDF has confirmed that an incident took place in the vicinity of the Holy Family Church in Gaza when two women, a mother and her daughter, were shot dead. Do you agree the killing of civilians undermines the legitimacy of your military operations? And what comments do you have on these specific killings?
Can you just repeat the first sentence?
Sure. The IDF has confirmed that an incident took place in the vicinity of the Holy Family Church in Gaza when two women and a mother and her daughter were shot dead.
Okay, so we do not target civilians. Full stop here. The IDF only targets terrorist and terror infrastructure. We don't want to see civilians being caught in the crossfire, and we're doing the utmost efforts to guarantee that this doesn't happen, while Hamas is doing exactly the opposite. They want to see civilian suffering and civilian casualties. It serves their goals. They openly say it, that they want to sacrifice the civilian population of the Gaza Strip to achieve their very sick goal of obliterating the Jewish state. Now, regarding that specific incident, if you look at the map, the church that you are talking about, the Catholic Church, is located in the Rimal neighborhood. According to the latest debrief that I have received from the IDF on Saturday, there wasn't fighting in that specific area. We're still investigating this incident, definitely investigating it. And the IDF have been in touch with representatives of that church on Saturday, and during the conversation, no reports of casualties or hits nearby the church was raised. Now, it's important to mention that our forces regard any such claims in utmost seriousness because we're talking about holy places here. And again, we don't target civilians no matter their religion, of course. But as you know, Christians are a minority group in the Middle East, and this is why we take such claims very, very seriously. Now, I know that there was another church in the Shajaiya neighborhood, which is a very, very complex battle zone, maybe one of the most complex battle zones in the Gaza Strip, not only now, also in 2014, if you have been paying attention. And over there, our forces had to respond to terrorist fire in the vicinity of a different church. That is what I am aware of. Another thing I think that is important to remember here when reporting such claims is that our nation, our military, and our leadership, we tell the truth, and we're for transparency, even when it's the most inconvenient thing for us to acknowledge, as happened just a few days ago in the case of the 3 Israeli hostages who were mistakenly identified by our forces as a threat and were shot at. A very, very tragic incident. So when we investigate, we conduct a thorough inquiry about incidents on the ground, and we have findings, we announce them. We take responsibility. Regarding the church incident, right now, this is not the case. We are still investigating. All right. I have another question from the chat. So somebody asked, what is the expected hike in import prices from the disruption of economic shipping to Israel? I'll just, once again, this is a global problem. It's not only Israel's problem. We're not the only ones suffering from the Houthi attacks. These are massive, it's a massive threat to free shipping in the high seas. And again, we're very pleased to see that our best friends, the Americans, are addressing it with the seriousness that they've taken it, with this 10-nation task force that they're leading to tackle this challenge. Let me see if oh, and I have one more question about Lebanon. Please provide a figure for the number of kilometers that Israel wants to see Hezbollah distance from the Lebanon border. Please provide figure for the number of kilometers Israel wants to see Hezbollah distance from the Lebanon border. Okay, so regarding the Lebanese border, we want to see the UN Security Council Resolution 1701 being implemented. That is the resolution that ended the Second Lebanon War in the year 2006. So, you know, Hezbollah is not supposed to maintain any military presence south of the Litani River, which is located some 30 kilometers, that's 18 miles north of the Israel-Lebanon border. The Lebanese army was supposed to enforce the authority of the Lebanese government over South Lebanon. And the Lebanese government was supposed to get rid of Hezbollah's presence in that area and other terror groups. And it was supposed to be supported by UNIFIL, the UN forces, which clearly failed their mission there. And trust me, it's not something that Israelis forgot about, an international guarantee that doesn't hold water. So obviously we don't want to see a full-fledged war on our northern border, but as our defense minister said, if Hezbollah wants to go up a level, we'll go up 5. And all right, that concludes our daily briefing for today. Thank you for joining us.